915-544-5876. Or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, however you're doing it. A lot of people chiming in already, including Marky Mendango with a good afternoon to you as well. To Beza Gardner with the hi and wave, and Willie Jenkins chiming in with the hello to you all as well, and dropping those likes and reacts. Certainly Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes. It's one of the better ways you can communicate with us throughout the show. Again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk for the most part. There's a couple other in-betweens and ones that we may forget sometimes, but we got a lot to talk about today, regardless of where you're able to tune in. And really, we're going with first posts here. It's been a minute since I've seen that. That's like a vestige of like late to like early mid 2000s internet. But well, in any case, we of course got the chiming in the comments that can come over that way. But a lot to talk about going on and affecting us in our region here. Not trying to become a weather station by any means, but the heat significant enough that it's causing, or at the very least complicating, multiple rescues and even deaths in the larger, not even just borderland region, but arguably our broadcast area. So we'll talk a little bit about that, precautions going on, and the fact that, we're looking at 110 tomorrow is the forecast being called for by our news partners over at KFOX 14. So stay safe out there. I also got a few mentions on tips on that, plus some programs in place for those in dire need. It's not just a, man, it's hot out there. It's a, this is dangerously hot kind of situation. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, some more details on, or at the very least, concepts for upcoming elections, or at the very least, corruption investigations, specifically from El Paso Inc. Interesting how the shades of previous corruption investigations from the 2000s and 2010s, early 2010s, may be coloring some of, what we're going to be continuing to discuss this week as well with those P card or just spending card in general. And in general investigations. I'm Marky Mendango with the very much helpful saying water, not libations, specifically referencing Frankie out there. Also Austin Redfern, happy Monday, Talk El Paso fans, and hey to you as well, appreciate it. And also Eric Von Holstein Rathlow with the hello and the wave, and hope you all had a great weekend, you certainly as well. And so that's one of the things. Also a little bit of clarity on not the most crowded race that we've had in our area, at least, but at least a clear enough statement coming out from a widely speculated potential candidate over for the El Paso District Attorney's Office. So as much as we're looking at least 3 being rumored or pretty close to being running anyway, if that's clear enough. Moody saying that, nope, he's going to stick with the State House, even if there's a lot that's going to be coming from the State House as well, including some presidential hopeful visits, or at least nomination hopeful at this point, visits to other parts of the border region, not coming here quite at the moment, but just a lot of rhetoric continuing on that, even if one of those larger points about how that even fits in with the race, mostly challenging the front runner directly and not as like a, well, I think I'd be better kind of situation, absolutely continues on. And some more updates on what total transparency actually ends up looking like in the Senate part of the impeachment trial for Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. So there's a lot going on today, and some arguing going on also over in the comments on the temperature so far. John Browston saying it's only 104. El Paso weather overdid their forecast. I mean, I was definitely in an area there where we were rating 106 today. Now, not, of course, an officially recorded one, but they still got those notes that we are looking at, over 100 degrees easily. And in fact, tomorrow, highs could approach 110 is the exact one. And Flaco, Mark Mandingo saying his porch is 105. Flaco saying it's 109 in his area and a little bit higher. Absolutely. But we're looking at even going over that next decimal, that next 10 mark with going to 110 tomorrow. So, yeah, happy Monday indeed. Mondo Moncada chiming in over from the Twitch stream. Do appreciate you chiming in there. So, just a couple of notes on that because, yeah, it's going to be damn hot indeed. And in fact, right now, our news partners at KFOX 14, that power outage actually out in the Socorro area right now, about just over 3,000 customers are reported at about 315. And looking at the power outage map, we've got some scattered ones around our area, with the biggest one, yeah, definitely being that one down in the Socorro area. But there's also one kind of, where's the nearest intersection to that? Not too far off, say, I-10 and what's the cross street there? Valle Verde campus with about 900 power outages and a few other scattered ones. So no widespread, thankfully, but, well, there's some of these issues. El Paso Electric, of course, putting out their own statement saying that they're prepared and ready to respond to the increased heat demands. None of the types of messages, anyway, that have been getting sent around as of last week in parts of eastern Texas, where, yeah, they have definitely got quite the sweltering situation. It wasn't too bad. I don't know what it is about humidity that it both makes it more miserable, but also seems to make people more willing to be outside. For anyone who's visited, eastern reaches of Texas, at least east from our perspective, which is all of it. And sure, it may make it just miserable the moment you step outside, but I don't know. Seems like it just makes it people more willing to be outside because, well, you're going to be miserable anyway. It doesn't matter how long you're outside or something like that. And a lot of interesting analysis going on in our comments of different weather situations and a lot of truism, including if the breeze blows like it blows like a flatulence out of a camel's behind is the way I'm going to say that one right now. I call it blow dryer weather, frankly. If we end up with those getting anywhere near triple different temperatures, and also it's blowing, not the nice like cool like, oh, there's a refreshing breeze, but it feels like you're just face first into a hair dryer set on full. Yeah, those are not fun type of conditions. So a couple of things going on is that there are both fan donations being accepted at pretty much every El Paso fire station. And so if you want to check that out, and also there are donations, and also someone is in need of a fan. Again, it's not full on air conditioning, though there have been cooling centers that have been activated. Would certainly consider anyone and encourage anyone who is in need of anything like that to certainly consider it. But the cooling centers located at the Gallatin Recreational Center, Marty Robbins Recreational Center, by Bajo Community Center, Nations Tobin Sports Center, and Chalio Acosta Sports Center, all through different parts of town. They have been opened Tuesday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. So definitely, and also, of course, mentioning there that the fans, if you can donate fans to any of the El Paso or Horizon fire stations, and if you need a fan, call 211 to see if you qualify. Certainly those in dire straits, the most considered for that kind of thing. And definitely agree with Luckily Menace. So glad I have refrigerated air. Absolutely. And in all of our vehicles, fixed up one of those recently, did not have it. And boy, was that going to be an unpleasant experience. But also, yeah, Marky Mandingo, but feels like using the dryer and you're stuck in it kind of situation. And this is not just to say, man, is it hot out there, guys? Oh man, it's just so hot. There are serious situations that have been coming along with this, including the fact that there have been a few rescues having to happen in our area. Specifically over the weekend, 5 hikers, one with heat exhaustion symptoms, helped off the Organ Mountains up in southern New Mexico. Las Cruces Fire Department performing that rescue, according to our news partners over at KFOX 14. And there was a rescue that was more or less ongoing. It wrapped up. That was earlier this morning here in the Franklin Mountains. An injured cyclist at Mundy Gap. So not necessarily totally heat related, but they've been out there much longer. I mean, it was already by 9 a.m. And what was the temperature at by that point? Yeah, bad. And then there was specifically fatality. Fatality was in our area. Not laughing at that part, but at Eric's comment about my phrase for flatulence. But a very serious situation out in the Big Bend area. Teen dies during heat wave hike. Stepfather fatally crashes seeking help at Big Bend National Park. So we've had a few things of people, particularly in wilderness areas, getting to be very serious, if not fatal circumstances. Out in that area, specifically in the Big Bend area, temperatures at 119. That's like Phoenix weather, and I don't live there for a whole lot of reasons, and those temperature ranges are absolutely one of them. In that case, a 14-year-old fell sick and lost consciousness. The father went to their vehicle to find help, while the other brother attempted to carry his brother back to the trailhead. And unfortunately, the father got into a crash on the embankment and was pronounced dead at the scene. So serious situations being caused by this. So take it seriously is what I'm saying. Stay hydrated, stay out of the heat as much as possible. There's even some advice from our news partners at KFOX 14 about how to keep children safe at playgrounds, because okay, I don't think we have a whole lot, not that I've been on a playground recently, a whole lot of those, smooth metal slides that when I've lived other places would just be known as butt burners, because in the right sunlight conditions, yeah, you could roast something on it, including your own buñuelos. But not a lot of those here. But still, even with the sunshades that have become more prevalent over recent decades in our area, can still be real hot. So maybe not totally Darwinism. And, well, yeah, Richard Janicek, Far East Texas, says thermal heat indexes, you literally boil like a lobster. I'm not saying I want the humidity over part of year. I will still stand by the pseudo joke that is our claim of dry heat, because it absolutely, I'll take 30% humidity over 70% humidity any day when it comes to these temperature ranges and these situations. But just stay safe out there, stay hydrated, and stay indoors in air conditioning as much as possible. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a whole lot of other things going on in and around our region, including more when it comes to law enforcement, both of illegal crossing attempts and those doing, well, just call it dubious activities online. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. And yeah, Monica Cervantes very much agree, even on the plastic playgrounds can burn. If it's too hot to touch, don't think to slide down it either. I'll just put it that way. Anyway, taking that first break of this hour right now, you are, of course, tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM, and I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Whole lot more we're going to be getting to in this hour, and, of course, phone calls a little bit later, but keep the comments going in the meantime. And until we get back from this first break, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
If you're slowing down on the I-10 eastbound headed towards the Spaghetti Bowl, it's because of a crash just before the Patriot. A fire truck's blocking the right lane. Traffic slowing down after Cotton with about a 5-minute delay. An injury accident in East San Antonio west of Cotton Street. An accident reported westbound Alameda at Paisano Drive with El Paso Fire on the scene. That earlier crash on Gateway South of Trans Mountains cleared. All lanes are back open. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
My mom and dad are the best. Ever since they called the early childhood program, I'm doing so much better, and mom and dad don't worry or stress as much as they used to. They seem a bazillion times happier, and all services are free.
Parenting isn't easy, so we signed up for the free early childhood program at the El Paso Center for Children. They taught us how to deal with COVID-19 stress and be better parents. Lots of other free services are available. Call 915-500-4105. That's 500-4105.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
You might be driving right now, and if you are, this story is right in front of you, the surprising history of road lane markings. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey folks, this is Andrew J. Polk. I've been going to Ruli's International Kitchen for years now for the favorites we know, with new and exciting features at the front door all the time. It's our go-to for the special celebrations and everyday occasions in our lives. Literally catered my wedding, and we've been marking anniversaries or even just lunch there ever since. It's a great little gourmet dive and so much more. 4176 North Mesa Street near Executive Center Boulevard, now with extended Sunday hours. Give them a call at 915-313-4806 or online at ruleysik.com.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
Packing for your summer road trip? Leave the travel guide at home and bring the Autio app along for the ride. Autio brings any drive to life with fascinating stories about the places you go, all narrated by expert storytellers. Browse through Autio's more than 10,000 fascinating location-based tales to inspire your travel itinerary and discover unique destinations along the way. Wherever summer takes you, make your next drive an adventure with Autio, the perfect companion for your next road trip. Learn more at autio.com.
Hey, it's Jesse Kelly. We are, for the most part, a reactionary society. If your neighbor has a break-in, you think about getting an alarm. If your buddy gets laid off, you say, I better buckle down at work. If banks start closing, you may want to ask yourself if you should keep most or all of your money in a bank. It may be time for a portfolio protection plan. It may be time to have a little personal gold reserve. Call my friends at the Oxford Gold Group. Call 833-404-GOLD. That's 833-404-GOLD.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to tune in, chime in, a lot of people doing so over on the various social media, and of course dropping those likes and reacts that we appreciate, including James Holmes, Eric Von Holstein, Rathlow, Richard Janisic, Marky Mendango, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, and Monica Cervantes. Again, if that's the place for you to be, I mean, those are primarily the Facebook page, sure, I understand, but if online is the place for you to be and chiming in that way, please do so. If you can't, because like you're driving or otherwise just unable to access, no hard feelings by any means. Certainly do whatever works for you. That's why we're in all those places. Not exactly preferred one, but there are ones that offer more interaction, which I always appreciate. So if you can, feel free. If not, you're locked in for us as we're getting moseying through this first hour of the program. Another one to come, of course, as we're on 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday these days. And a lot of other commentary coming in, including one a little bit earlier. I'm missing which one it is, but I want to say it was, Mando Moncada asking, did George Santos make it to El Paso? You know what? That's one of the sets of high-profile visits. Best one, most updated one I could find from Border Reports is that was planning to visit according to his own spokespersons, to, quote, discuss the border crisis, official business only, and, quote, any personal and campaign-related questions / matters will not be discussed. So it was expected to be at the Hyatt Place Hotel in central El Paso, but says it was going to have one-on-ones, but haven't seen any updates on that. So a few reports saying that he is in El Paso or has been today in El Paso. So I think so, but I don't have anything concrete or anything that's come out from, like, say, our news partners or others on exactly what he was doing, what he was talking about. Though that leads us pretty naturally into talking about the other major, arguably more high-profile outside of our area anyway, border visit that was going on today, that of course, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. From the Texas Tribune here at Texas-Mexico border, Ron DeSantis unveils immigration platform with Trump in mind, saying that his plan is, quote, more aggressive, end quote, than the former president's proposals, which, okay, we'll get into that maybe a little bit later about the comparisons as opposed to the direct attacks on. But all the things like saying that he would like Texas to be able to deport across the border 100%, and on his broader platform said, quote, what we're saying is no excuses on this, get the job done, make it happen. We don't want hollow rhetoric. We don't want empty promises. And noted again by the Texas Tribune that he didn't go out of his way to mention the former president, but asked what specifically when they differ with him, said, you notice how little the wall had been built, and he was surprised to learn that more people had deported under Obama than Trump himself. So there's a there's a lot of different aspects of this coming in, including one of the points that was made to me last week anyway about the visit, that the specific reason that DeSantis in this case was visiting the Eagle Pass area as part of, again, a ramping up campaign. We're fully in campaign season, but there'll probably be a lot more focus on this area because one of the things that is, okay, Trump was obviously the elephant in the room for pretty much any of these candidates and is going to be going forward. I make no bones about that, even as we're skirting Friday territory. Even as I say that, I fully understand. specific reason for the visit to this, at the very least, some of the politicos, arguably within DeSantis's camp, saying that the reason he was visiting again to do this, as opposed to just making any announcements, was the optics, being at the border Eagle Pass area, one of the more high-profile areas that has been talked about in a lot of these situations, but also to make the point that by visiting twice now, having done one to, I believe, Arizona a little bit earlier in the year, that it's going to be that he has visited more than the current administration has. So very much a focus on it. And again, as the Texas Tribune makes note of, Nikki Haley has also visited in April, when visiting along with Tony Gonzalez, the Texas 23rd Congressional District Republican representative. So this may or may not, it'd be interesting to see if this ends up becoming the border in general, that is, if not El Paso proper, though I'd argue it's probably an easier trip to El Paso, that may not entirely be the point of a bit. I mean, you can't really consider the next Republican nomination without considering border issues, considering how much they were a cornerstone of previous such ones, at the very least, of the candidates and, again, former president currently involved within it. It would be the massive, it'd be like ignoring the previous things, the previous major issues. So, and I mean, a lot of things that are coming back on it, including fire that DeSantis is receiving from Trump's allies, including some super PACs, the Make America Great Again Inc., saying that, well, firing back at DeSantis. So again, firmly getting into the fry territory with that, but it's interesting to see how this area is becoming it. So we'll see what George Santos actually gets done here on his own visit in our area. RJ saying George Santos, another politician that will need a corkscrew bit to dig his burial hole. That's a very interesting graphic you're giving me there on the idea of it. The guy just being not being able to toe a straight line at any point, I guess, is what you're getting at there. But of course, there's a lot of other issues going on. Let's just touch on state of Texas here for another minute, specifically that as we are looking at what may or may not be coming, at the very least publicly, for the impeachment trial for Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, again, referring to the reporting from the Texas Tribune here, their article titled, "Despite Promise of Quote-Unquote Total Transparency, Secrecy Will Be a Big Part of Ken Paxton Impeachment Trial." Subtitle, "From Deliberations to Documents, the Texas Senate's Rules Create an Opaque Process for the Suspended Attorney General's Impeachment Trial, set to begin now September 5th. I don't know if we actually got into that issue last week. I think we at least mentioned it once, if not twice, as there were many other things to end up going into. But Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has promised maximum transparency, as noted by the Texas Tribune here. But that basically their argument is that the rules basically prevent it or make it very much more possible that it won't. Of course, as we've mentioned, there has been a lot of interplay on what may or may not be going on with the trial, and specifically, you of course have the House managers of this, the bipartisan group, approved after the impeachment proceedings were further voted on pretty overwhelmingly bipartisanly by the lower chamber, which of course includes El Paso lawmaker and current state representative Joe Moody, who we'll also talk about here in just a second, but saying specifically that they're going to be moving forward with this. They've now been working on having attorneys there as well, some hired, I do believe, from a little bit closer to the Austin area. So yeah, there's a lot to still be done there. And so with that coming up September 5th, it'll be another one we'll definitely be keeping our eye on. And RJ saying they're now saying that 15 million have entered the country. So I reckon it's going to be an issue. Again, I don't think there was any chance that border security and immigration issues were not going to be one of the leading items, not even just in like our local considerations. Of course, it's one of the major ones, because a lot of the times in recent years, those issues have been coming literally right through our backyard. And so we're certainly going to be talking about it just in our own airways. But the fact that the border may or may not become a pilgrimage site isn't exactly the right way to put it, but you got to go there if you're going to seem serious about this, would be an interesting bent to it, as opposed to just being on the campaign trail, just going to the constituencies, just going to the major places that you're going to try to actually drum up the votes from. So as we also have a Bernadette Bandicoal with a hello and hoping all are hydrating. Yeah, absolutely hope you all are as well the Anel Rueda with the double hearts, it looks like, from this end. Anyway, let's take that next break right now. We touched ever so slightly on some more of our local politics, so let's delve more into that here this next segment. What specifically State Rep Joe Moody has said about him not considering running for, well, any other position at the very least, but also how things are unfolding with some other investigations and corruption and, well, just things like that. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm again your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone lines here in just a bit, as we normally do. But in any case, certainly more talk after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Vania Castillo with your CBS 4 headlines. 10 people were arrested and booked into the El Paso County Jail by multiple agencies for various sex crimes in El Paso. The investigation sought to identify and arrest individual suspects involved in human trafficking and using the internet to solicit sexual acts from minors and adults. Agencies also focused to find suspects who sought to exploit and victimize prostitutes. Currently, all 10 arrested are facing felony charges. At least 11 agencies were involved in the operation. And under House Bill 1540, which passed in 2022, all individuals were charged under the enhanced offense for solicitation of prostitution, meaning that charges are filed as a state jail felony unless the person has been previously convicted. Then they are charged with a third-degree felony. For more local headlines, you can check our website at cbs4local.com. I'm Vania Castillo, and this has been your CBS 4 headlines.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound is slow because of an accident blocking the right lane just before the Patriot. A fire truck is actually blocking the right lane as workers continue to clear up that accident. Traffic slowing back to Cotton with 5-minute delays. El Paso police are responding to a crash I-10 eastbound after Loma Land and an accident reported westbound Alameda at Paisano Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Weather warned all the way through the end of this week on Friday for the dangerously hot temperatures. Excessive heat warning again, El Paso for tomorrow. High around 110 degrees for your Tuesday with breezy conditions. Partly cloudy, breezy on Wednesday, still hot with a high around 106. 10% chance of a storm, partly cloudy, breezy on Thursday, high around 105. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. Rescue teams with the El Paso Fire Department were responding to an injured hiker this morning. The hiker was at Moddy Gap in Franklin Mountain State Park. That search effort started at about 9:30 this morning. Temperatures were expected to climb to 109 by this afternoon. The Las Cruces Fire Department helped rescue hikers on Friday in the Oregon Mountains. 10 people have been arrested and booked into the El Paso County Jail for various sex crimes. According to the Texas Department of Public Safety, the investigation sought to identify and arrest individuals suspected to be involved in human trafficking and using the internet to solicit sexual acts from minors and adults. Agencies also focused on suspects who sought to exploit and victimize prostitutes. Currently, all 10 suspects are facing felony charges. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Leaving for the gym so early?
I'm ready to go.
Since you started taking Nugenix Total T, you've been acting like when we met in our 20s.
I feel like myself again. Lower testosterone after turning 40 slowed me down. Nugenix Total T has been a game changer for me.
What is it about Nugenix Total T that's different?
Well, it's a patented key ingredient called testofen. It boosts free and total testosterone to help you get back the drive and energy from your youth. It's backed by 5 clinical studies.
I've seen the huge difference it's made for you in the gym, at work, and in the bedroom.
I'm so glad I sent them a text for my complimentary bottle. Text LION to 321321 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T. Nugenix is the #1 selling testosterone boosting brand at GNC and Walmart. Do it now, and we'll also send you a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X, our newest, most powerful fat burner ever. Absolutely free. Text LION to 321321. That's LION to 321321.
We'll have the story of Sidney Poitier, Hollywood's first black movie star and the first black man to win a Best Actor Oscar. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of situations going on here in the Borderland region, including that major... more attempts at border crossings, as has also been mentioned. So let's call it a little bit of a legal situation and review and enforcement going on with it. Of course, El Paso, Texas.gov/the migrant-crisis page, the migrant situational awareness dashboard, still has a lot of information, still showing much lower numbers in recent days and weeks than we saw during any of the previous high water marks, like the current 7-day rolling average for encounters, 637 in our area, technically up a little bit from the previous week in which it was 619. And the in custody is also up a bit, just shy of about 1,900 as opposed to about 1,400 and change in the previous week. And one very interesting situation going on with that is both being reported on by our news partners at KFOX 14, but also just some of the direct tweets from Anthony Scott Good, on his official Twitter page for the U.S. Border Patrol El Paso sector and the chief patrol agent there, showing that there was an interesting attempt at a bit of crossing. This was a previous conversation. Just because we're nowhere near the previous numbers does not mean that nothing is happening in our area. And specifically that agents found after a camera setup caught some of the activity going on. Agents found individuals exploiting, quote unquote, the drain, some of these storm drains near the Isleta Border Patrol station in order to move people into the country, specifically, and again, the equipping of it, because it's one thing for, at least in my mind anyway, people to be just making desperate attempts at whatever they can, just kind of struggling through. But this was a decently well-equipped type situation. The pictures actually up there from, again, at USBP Chief EPT, showing the tunnel itself, not exactly just a leisurely stroll through the tunnel, but not quite like a Shawshank Redemption type situation either. Not quite hands and knees, and they're carrying quite a lot of equipment with them, which what looks like to me, not being an expert in this realm at all, it was noted that they were carrying oxygen and various tools. My initial reading of that made me think, so wait, were they expecting it to have flooding and to deal with it? No, we're talking like oxygen tanks for what look like torches. Basically, it looks like welding equipment to me. So needing to cut through parts of this or other things of it, coming equipped for that, which is an interesting situation. And again, the preparation for that kind of thing and the knowledge about it specifically is, well, one of the things that continue to strike me. And RJ asking, haven't they found 5 bodies in the last few days during this heat wave, Sun and Sunland Park? I want to say that that's within the order of magnitude. I haven't seen that exact number of 5, but that there have been concerns from Border Patrol and others about there essentially being some very serious situations going on out in the desert area. They're more of the official channels talking about the apprehensions going on, but I do believe that has been some of the reporting going on in our area. And Montemoncada saying, I never saw Shawshank Redemption. Don't have to get this reference. There's just one scene towards the end, no spoilers intended here, of someone crawling through a really long pipe that was basically shoulder width. Let's just put it that way. And Angel Rueda, on a very serious note as well, never know what kind of gases might be down there. Pretty dangerous stuff. Expecting to spark up like an acetylene or an oxygen-based torch, and you end up lighting something. I mean, it's a drainage tunnel. It's not meant to be human habitable or being any kind of accessible situation out of like extreme repairs. So not a good one. On a different side of enforcement, what was talked about by our news partners at KFOX 14 right there, 10 arrested and booked into the El Paso County Jail by multiple agencies for various sex crimes in El Paso. as of last Wednesday, out by my statement out over the weekend by the Texas Department of Public Safety, a multi-agency effort, including a local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies such as DPS, as mentioned, Criminal Investigations Division, Homeland Security Investigations, Border Patrol, the TABC, which is an interesting one, Texas Military CID, Western District of Texas Assistant Unit, Western District of Texas Assistant United States Attorney's Office, and the Border Prosecution Unit for the 34th Judicial District. So, saying that it was a multifaceted effort would definitely be all right, but some of the crimes being, all of them charged under essentially solicitation of prostitution, all of them state jail felonies, with some of the age ranges from those accused anyway, as low as 22 to, I believe the oldest one was 65. Yep. And so booked into there, all facing felony charges, and the implications of human smuggling, human trafficking, and sexual exploitation of even minors, some pretty serious stuff. So as much as we often talk about border issues, pretty glad to see also the things going on the back end of it as well, the reception part of it. So yeah, that's a important thing, and so glad to focus on that. But it's not directly linking by any means, but keeping, I guess, in the vein of investigations and the potential for criminal prosecution. Not totally clear at this point, but some of the statements that have been coming out recently about the El Paso spending card scandal and those kind of things has been about, well, what's happened previously in our region. One of the things that El Paso's, current district attorney has said is that, well, there hasn't been anything filed with him as of yet. So he hasn't said that, no, he won't be prosecuting anything because it's not proper, but that it hasn't reached that stage yet. At least that's my takeaway from it. But El Paso Inc. out with an interesting one over this weekend. Past corruption casts shadow over city ethics inquiry, noting that there was the series of public corruption scandals from the early 2000s that, noting between specifically 2004 and 2013, there was a slew of former county judges, county commissioners, school board members, and high-profile business leaders indicted in federal public corruption investigations, many of them convicted and jailed. Specifically, 32 El Paso public officials were convicted by the U.S. Department of Justice, including in the range of corruption schemes, including racketeering, conspiracy, fraud, bribery, exchanging votes for money, and contract fixing. Not a great time to be around here. A little bit before my time in doing reporting, but it had some strange interactions with one specifically involved with that. Trying to see if it was one of the names of them here. Again, not quite in that circumstance, but one of the former county judge actually came and did a speech at my high school for, I think it was part of a specific club. It had been the 1 week I was in academic back in high school, and talked about, it all comes down to taxes and your money. And like, he was about to be on his way out, and also specifically had some very other and just strange / stupid issues that he got involved in. That's just like, how did you expect to get away with this? But El Paso goes a little bit more in depth and further into how those, previous major things that were going on in our area, there were also like school board officials, maybe not in the exact same vein, but I mean, when you talk about public corruption, I'd allow for a little bit more of a broad brush when you're connecting separate types of incidents and being in the same vein as being impacts on this. So they update on what's going on with the city internal audit office that is looking further into this and where it currently stands, including what has been going on with their knowledge so far, including also a response from current city rep Cassandra Hernandez, who, just a note as a programming one, feel important to reference in this same vein as well, is going to be interviewed on this program tomorrow. We'll be speaking with her tomorrow morning and bringing you all that interview and her response to this and some of the other recent situations for our airwaves tomorrow. So keep that in mind. They also do go through El Paso Inc., that is, in their most recent edition, City of El Paso to pay nearly $900,000 to fire city manager Tommy Gonzalez, going a bit in depth on what the numbers are and a little bit of response there, and what the actual policies and payouts are coming from that. So take a look at that, but also a little bit more on that. And again, just speaking about public officials, wanted to, before we get to that next break, that, from El Paso Matters on this one, Joe Moody passes on El Paso DA race to seek re-election to Texas House, noting specifically that, believe in a statement that he ended up issuing up in an interview with El Paso Matters, in this case, saying, quote, "I think the last 3-4 sessions we've been able to achieve some incredibly transformative things for our community. A standalone medical school, continuing to push advanced manufacturing, aerospace engineering at UTEP, transportation infrastructure. All of these things have kind of dovetailed nicely with a rebirth and resurgence in El Paso as a strong community, and we are really on the precipice of some significant investments and changes that you have to see through to the end." So that is going to leave not another particular person going into the into that race. That is for the next district attorney for El Paso. So with Bill Hicks still going to be finishing out the final 2 years of Rosales' term, as again noted by El Paso Matters, and some other commentary coming in, he's going to be sticking with the State House, basically saying that he's going to continue running for that one instead, and continuing on that focus he mentioned here. Mondo Moncada on the public corruption saying, sounds like a good topic for the El Paso history radio show, Crooked Politicians. We only got 2 hours in a show, though. I don't know if we'd be able to get through it. Okay, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but many. But also RJ is saying, I wonder why the skepticism, politicians and corkscrew bits, nothing new under the sun. It's never a great thing that happens, though. I have often still had with perspective. It's just so dumb. Some of the corruption that has been accused or convicted, people have been convicted of in our area previously. Like, again, I come from thinking about, like, okay, what was going on in Chicago? The Rod Blagojevich, who, if I never hear his name again, it will be too damn soon, because his, like, trying to sell a Senate seat. Like, come on, let's look at the stakes here. The stakes versus the reward. And at the very least, like, some of these things, don't remember which one in particular. I think it was a former El Paso superintendent that was selling and was accused of taking kickbacks on like a multi-$1,000 printing contract. Like $6,000 is what sticks in my mind, which, sure, with inflation is more nowadays, but still, like, you are willing to risk your career, your good name, your job, and your freedom on something that much of a pittance. At least hold yourself in higher regard is all I got to say. There's no good corruption, but there's also just like more or less stupid corruption, and I don't feel great about either, but I feel more of a way about the stupider it gets. Anyway, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll go ahead and, of course, open up those phone lines as we normally do at this point during the program. So if you want to call in during the show, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound before the Patriot, an earlier crash partially blocking the right lane, although that delay is gone as you make your way into the Spaghetti Bowl. Traffic's flowing pretty smoothly. I-10 eastbound after Loma Land, an accident with police on the scene there, and an injury accident reported Kenworthy at Diana Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard. Takes too long.
Not with Babbel. Babbel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes isn't long.
Nope. And they're fun.
Fun isn't hard.
Right. Babbel's interactive lessons, podcasts, games, and more make it fun and engaging, so you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. And Babbel's lessons are built around real life. You can choose from topics like travel, business, relationships, and more. You'll learn what matters most to you. Plus, Babbel's lessons are designed to get you speaking right away. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations.
Just 3 weeks? Even better.
Since Babbel's lessons are designed by language experts and voiced by real native speakers, you'll get the accents just right and be able to carry on conversations with confidence.
Learning a language with Babbel doesn't take long.
And with Babbel, it isn't hard.
It's perfect.
And now, try Babbel free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
We'll have the story of our fourth president, James Madison from Hillsdale College President Larry Arn. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
we welcome open-minded individuals
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
with open arms
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
for open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of two people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, and a lot of other commentary coming in, including, let me see here, So, yeah, RJ saying in terms of those that were arrested for the prostitution or solicitation therein, men with no game, that's putting it mildly. But also, Eric Von Holstein-Rath was saying earlier that Chip Roy is giving Congress an earful about the border. Yeah, I remember some of his previous speeches that we've discussed here, but apparently I didn't realize this. He was along with Ron DeSantis in Eagle Pass this morning doing part of that visit. So implicit support there, I guess, or maybe just saying, well, it's my focus area, among other things. So, I don't know, take it as you will. But, of course, a lot more going on there. Of course, we know those phone lines open right now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. If you want to get on the line, available now. We do have a caller on the line with us right now. We do have Mary over in West Central. Mary, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me, Andrew. I have something really important to say that I became aware of over the weekend. What I have to say, I hope every taxpayer living in El Paso Independent School District is sitting down, because I'm going to read something real quick that I came across.
Okay.
I know that the taxes, a majority of our taxes are based upon EPISD. So here's what I got.
Sure.
Potentially as early as this November, EPISD is going to launch another bond initiative. The top administration at EPISD is trying to keep it top secret. There are two things to say. Number one, the price tag will be at least $600 million. That means when combined with the 2016 bond payments and the maintenance tax notes approved by Mr. Velarde, EPISD will be at least $1.4 billion. That's with a B. That's not a typo error. $1.4 billion. It'll be in debt. There will be the second point I want to make is that there's going to be a carefully orchestrated and controlled community, quote unquote, engagement, where the process is already predetermined. They're gonna happen. It's gonna happen like during the holidays. That way, people are going to be distracted and they're going to shove that down our throats.
I mean, okay, I haven't seen the specific one you're talking about, so if you wouldn't mind, actually, if you've got the ability to send us a copy of that, we'd love to see that further. And my email, andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com. But I guess I wouldn't be too surprised. I mean, 2016 was not that long ago. Doesn't feel like that long ago, but it's coming. I mean, it's, before you get too long into getting to the next decade. And that one, was $668 million bond at that point in time from 2016 money. And some of those projects still kind of in progress. At the very least, some of the consolidations have mostly gone through, and the reopening or whatever they're going to do with those existing properties, like Robert Elementary sticks with me. It's one I drive past decent frequency. And of course, not too far from our station here, Moorhead, I think it's going to be rebranded and returned into a K through 8, if I'm not if that's the latest plan I remember seeing anyway. And so a lot of that progression is still going on. So I wouldn't be surprised. It's one of the reasons when we had on the candidates that we were talking about from that most contentious EPISD election that we asked them about it, what will be your considerations? Because there's, whether or not there's one immediately being considered, it never seems like one is too far away from coming to the forefront.
Yeah, that's true. $1.4 billion. So I wanna, those of the Libre and all of the people who are activists,
sure,
trying to bring out, I wanted to share it sooner rather than later so that maybe it can be shut down before rather than having us, chase it.
That's an interesting possibility. Again, I'm not surprised, even I haven't seen that specific information. So if at all possible, if you can share that with us, I'd greatly appreciate it here, but understand otherwise. But we'll certainly talk more about that, see what's coming out of it. Again, it doesn't totally surprise me, even if some of the recent bonds, I want to say the most recent one without having it the exact answer in front of me here, would be the Canutillo one, which was in the order of like 100 to 200 million, depending on which version we're talking about, revamped there. So this would be one of the bigger ones. But of course, in our region, particularly if you expand to Las Cruces, there have been a number of school bonds that have been on the ballot this last decade.
What do you think would be the net effect to the taxpayer paying on $1.4 billion?
If you're asking for the specific numbers on like the calculations,
how much do you think, just off the top of your head, it would add to the average taxpayer?
Yeah, I would have to go into the comparison because we're talking about in the same vein. So I'd expect it to be similar to what the previous bond was, if again approved and fully proposed, all those steps taken as caveat here. So we're talking about probably on the order, and don't quote me on this because I'll need to do the exact calculations, but probably in the order of like hundreds of dollars a year. Depending on, again, they break it down into the certain amount of hundreds per $100,000 valuation. I think the exact way they put it out is as cents per $100 evaluation or something like that. So you'll have to give me a second here to get into the calculations of what it was for 2016. I might be able to come out because this sounds within the same order of magnitude anyway. So I might be able to figure out a little bit closer what that potentially could be, given that this is effectively speculation at this point, even if it sounds like you have a reason to believe it's accurate.
Yes, somewhere probably an additional could be 800, another $1,000 added on to our taxes, and it's just incredible. I just can't believe it. I did buy lotto tickets though, so.
Well, then maybe you won't have to worry about it. Well, appreciate the point and you telling us about this. And again, send that to us if you can, but do appreciate it. You have a good one there.
All right. God bless. Thank you.
Certainly appreciate it. So let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break and the top of the hour, we'll still be taking more of those calls on the line. So if you want to get on, add your 2 cents. That number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
No delays on your Valley freeways right now. An earlier accident, I-10 eastbound before the Patriot into the Spaghetti Bowl is cleared. All lanes are back open, no delays. I-10 eastbound after Loma Land, police are wrapping up an earlier crash there. Injury accident reported, Kenworthy at Diana Drive. Rest of your El Paso roadways look good. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From iHeart Podcasts, Supreme, The Battle for Roe, tells the story of the unlikely champions behind the landmark case Roe v. Wade, starring Maya Hawke as 26-year-old lead attorney Sarah Weddington.
We're challenging the Texas abortion laws in federal court.
And Academy Award nominee William H. Macy as Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun.
Time is not the most important factor. Getting it right is.
Listen to the podcast Supreme, The Battle for Roe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Intense storms in parts of the country are creating headaches for travelers. According to FlightAware, over 2,200 flights within, into, or out of the U.S. have been canceled today. Thunderstorms Sunday night hit parts of the Southeast and Ohio Valley, with more than 700,000 left without power at one point. Russian President Putin says a march on Moscow by a group of mercenary soldiers was criminal activity. Speaking through an interpreter, Putin claimed order has been restored.
And there has been a firm support of the constitutional order by all the leading parties.
The Wagner Group boss said in a statement that the march was not an effort to overthrow Putin, but rather a protest. He added that he turned his troops around to avoid Russian bloodshed. Congressman George Santos says Speaker McCarthy's comments saying he shouldn't run for re-election won't necessarily stop him. The New York Republican wrote in a tweet that he plans to continue working for his constituents and that the Speaker's comments don't change his intention of running. A new variant of COVID-19 has been detected in several Western states. Lisa Taylor has the details.
Cases of the EU11 strain have been confirmed in North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, Wyoming, Colorado, and Montana. It's still not known whether there will be different symptoms that emerge in the United States cases of the new strain. It's believed EU11 could be more transmissible, and at this time, the cases of the strain account for 8.7% of COVID cases in all those states. I'm Lisa Taylor.
A deadline for Hollywood actors and studios to get a deal done looms over the entertainment world this week. SAG-AFTRA's contract with studios expires on Friday. Over the weekend, the union told members that negotiations with studios had been extremely productive. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Prosecutors will seek the death penalty against the suspected killer of 4 University of Idaho students. A new court filing Monday says the Boise prosecutors are pushing for the ultimate penalty against Brian Kohberger. Kohberger's trial is supposed to begin in October and is expected to last 6 weeks. San Francisco is celebrating Pride in a big way after a crowd nearing 1 million people attended its 53rd annual Pride Parade Sunday. San Francisco Mayor London Breed highlighted some of the issues the LGBTQ community is facing nationwide.
In places like Florida, say don't say gay. You know what we do in San Francisco? We light up the pink triangle. We light up the entire Market Street with the biggest pride flag. The theme of this year's parade was about looking back and moving forward. A new study says 1 out of every 29 people considers themselves to be clumsy. Bree Tennis has the details.
Everyone has varying levels of coordination, but are some people clumsier than others? According to science, the answer is no. The University of Delaware did a study of athletes from 18 universities. They studied the subjects on neurological and cognitive ability and compared injuries. They came to learn that clumsiness comes down to reaction time. It's not inherited, and you're not more prone to bumping into things than anyone else. They found any momentary distraction could throw the athletes off, and the same goes for regular non-athletic people.
Bree Tennis reporting. Call it the real-world fake Mars. A hangar at Johnson Space Center is the setting as 4 non-astronauts began a 1-year residency Sunday in a setting that's designed to simulate life on Mars. NASA says the goal is to examine the potential physical and mental effects of arriving on and then living on the red planet for at least a year. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bank. That's bank. Enter it now.
Get your tickets now
At AXS.com.
for our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Coming back to Las Vegas.
2 nights,
September 22nd and 23rd.
1 stage,
At T-Mobile Arena.
streaming live only on Hulu.
This is the iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Buy your tickets for our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival now
Before they sell out.
at AXS.com.
That's AXS.com.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
We'll have the story of our 4th president, James Madison, from Hillsdale College president Larry Arnn. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
There are choices that can change your life.
Like the choice to start routine colorectal cancer screening at age 45.
It's one of the most common cancers for women and men, and it doesn't always have symptoms.
But there's good news. Routine screening can catch colorectal cancer early and even prevent it.
And there's even better news. You have screening options.
Make the choice to put your health first. Talk to your doctor about your screening options or visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
Rover's Morning Glory.
It's the Woody Show.
It's Elliot in the morning.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
iHeartRadio Music Festival.
All of the best free curated playlists.
It's everything that rocks.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
This is Freddie Prinze Jr. from the Wrestling with Freddie podcast.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome. All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And particularly thanks to our sponsors, Bring Talk El Paso, brought to you in part by Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. They've got their 2023 new Ram 1500s and Grand Wagoneers all on sale. You get tens of thousands of dollars off or 10% off MSRP, depending. So check them out, Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, 950 Crockett Street, basically right across I-10 from Sunland Park Mall. A lot of people tuning in and chiming in with us, including making a lot of comments over there and dropping those likes and reacts that we always appreciate, including James Holmes, Eric Von Holstein Rathlow, Richard Janicek, Marky Mandingo, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, and Monica Cervantes. Do appreciate that. And some of the comments coming in, including John Brazelton, saying as what the hell is EPISD going to spend the money on? Most of their schools have too few students as it is, referring to their what our previous caller did have to say about the potential for, and roughly in the mid $600 million range, from remembering that correctly, and pretty close to the $668 million that was part of the previous one. And this information coming directly from the actual from EPISD itself. The amount of the bond was $668.7 million. And the tax rate impacts there, it was on 18.8 cents to the current tax rate. So that's usually taxed on a $100 valuation. So based on their numbers for the now average house in El Paso, if it's not at $200,000, it's damn near. And so that would put it at roughly about $282 added to the tax bill. So not just that's the tax bill overall, but that would be added to the existing tax bill. And again, your mileage may vary. So that's because at that point, the tax rate was $1.23.5, which may sound a little confusing way of put it, but that was the amount per $100 of home valuation. So that would have added $282, the 18.8 cents at that. So would be within roughly pretty close if it would be considered at the same amount. So like I said, on the order of hundreds of dollars per year, depending on your home value. If it's usually they add it to what it is for $100,000, going from the EPISD.org, their page on it, how much will that cost me if approved? They use the increase in school taxes, $11.75 per month, which is, come on, it's not the actual amount, because $11.75 times 12 is actually $141, and that's based on so it would be $141 for every $100,000 of home valuation. So you have to do a little bit of math to figure out your own personal situation, which does remind me, did have our home value increase protests over this past weekend. And honestly, given all the conversation that we have had about that and all of the machinations, preparations, etc. Ended up having way too much printing costs because, of course, printers smell fear. And as I and my family were trying to print out the documents we were going to take to present our case before the El Paso Central Appraisal District, it stopped working, or at the very least was not working correctly enough to where the documents were intelligible. So we ended up having to go to, it's not Kinko's anymore, but that shows my age, but had to go to get it commercially printed. It ended up costing us like $20 to get the whole packet of our previous appraisal printed. And all of that in preparation. I'm not like upset that we were well prepared, felt we were pretty well prepared, but we got there and we were saying, okay, you're looking at this increase of some tens of thousands of dollars. And we said, yes, but we don't feel that's accurate or fair. And they said, well, what's the range you're looking at? I said, well, our sales price was this, some 10% less than what they had mentioned. Like, oh, okay. So do you just want to do that then, since that was your sale price? That's a different situation. I know it's not at all probably standard because, again, we bought the house within the last 12 months. So yeah, your mileage is absolutely going to vary. And of course, if you want any questions about this, how they go through the process, we do have that previous interview with Dinah Kilgore, the chief appraiser and executive director with the Central Appraisal District. But it was a lot less of a gladiatorial combat than I was expecting. I will be perfectly. We didn't have to end up going into the appeal board or anything like that. We just sat down with the employee dude, hashed it out, and he said, oh, yeah, you've got the purchase price? Sure. Do you want to just set it at that? And therefore we agreed. So it worked. Thank you all for the advice over this whole time. But yeah, it wasn't quite the beat down, drag out brawl that I was getting, that I've heard from other people. So if you've had a different situation, my condolences. Hope it works out for you. It is the season going on right now. And there were a lot of people in there and a lot of people moving through. They've got quite the factory floor of just, the conveyor belt of people effectively going through the way you want to consider it. So for future reference, if anyone's considering it, particularly if you bought your home in the last year, yeah, absolutely go through the process, because one finer point that I realized that I was maybe not mistaken about, but not conceiving of entirely correctly, so yeah, I was mistaken, is that as much as this is a new tax rate based on the new year, this was still based on the previous year's numbers, meaning that our evaluation, our actual appraisal, and then, of course, sale price was still very much the information that was in the commiserate same type of date range. Meaning that if you just bought your house or have had any appraisals within the last year, might not be a bad idea to still consider it for yourself if you disagree with those valuations for yourself in the future. And saved us probably, again, like at least that 8% on the taxes, also making sure we got the homestead exemption put in, which is another significant portion of it, even if we're wondering to see what the hell the state ends up doing. And of course, there's one of the narratives and conversations that's been coming out from the state level. And actually, previous guests in the program I've seen coming up recently, Don Huffines, if anyone remembers him and his time on the ballot here in Texas. And he's been making a little bit more noise, putting out other things, saying that he's the real one behind getting rid of the idea of property taxes. Saying that Texas, in a recent tweet, actually just a couple hours ago at this point, Texas must buy down the school property tax rate to 0 to give all Texans permanent property tax relief. So it sounds like he might be setting up his next run for governor or some office in Texas. This is my clouded crystal ball at play here. But that idea, that policy, that's been being floated, or it can be read as a subtext for particularly the negotiations that, to my knowledge, are still going on within the Texas State House, even if we're getting towards the real crunch times in this special session after the regular legislative session ended up elapsing without action on things like this being taken. It's a subtext, absolutely, but I'll also say that no specific action on it, though. Again, it's more of a, okay, this is setting up, you can see, the winds of change or the brewing storm clouds for future sessions. Absolutely. That Trito Sack also chiming in saying, with the appraisal, saying, I had the same situation. I stayed firm on the purchase price and they conceded. I will say the appraisal district building needs to fix their AC. It's stuffy in there. We were in there, early afternoon, so it wasn't too bad. We were in and out pretty quickly. I don't even think we may have sat for like a second, but we were there right at our appointment time, so a little bit beforehand. So it wasn't too bad. It was just the one room we were in. They had like 3 different appraisal offices in one room about this size, a little bit smaller, probably about half this size actually, which for those of you on radio, I know is a terribly descriptive term, but let's call it like a a 10 by 15, then that might be a little bit generous in its own right. And there were 3 of them and 3 different sets of people, myself and spouse included, dealing with it here. So again, that wasn't the part I was most focused on, was the AC, but I won't necessarily disagree with you there if you've ever had to go to that building. Let's go and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we got more comments, and of course, we'll get to more calls. If you want to call in and get your 2 cents on the line that way, that number, of course, to do so, and lines open and available now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at the Loop in the Lower Valley. An accident has the transition ramp to Loop 375 partially blocked. I-10 eastbound at just before the Patriot. That earlier crash is cleared. All lanes are back open. No backups on the I-10 eastbound. Westbound on Montana Avenue just outside the Loop. An accident reported. And eastbound Montana slow from Hawkins to Zaragoza with 7-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-989-8906 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-989-8906. That's 800-989-8906. What do you have to lose? Call 800-989-8906. Again, 800-989-8906.
Because you never hear this.
Hey, hon, I'm late. Chris, I am so pleased you missed the beginning of our meeting.
Thanks for making me wait, Dad. I talked to a lot of strangers.
Check on your commute. Stay informed. Traffic and weather all day. Or you might never hear the end of it.
Well, you were late to our anniversary dinner that one time.
Yes, how could I forget?
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Now, here's this week's iHeartRadio countdown of the top trending songs.
Finally letting go of the 4-spot, Metro Boomin falls back to number 5 this week with Creepin' featuring The Weeknd and 21 Savage.
I don't wanna know if you're playing me, keep it on the low.
After debuting at number 5 last week, Taylor Swift is up 1 this week with Karma.
Karma is my boyfriend, Karma is a god, Karma is the breeze in my hair on the weekend.
Miley Cyrus keeps hanging into the top 5. Flowers is your number 3 song.
I can buy myself flowers.
Rema and Selena Gomez continue to hold steady. Calm Down remains your number 2 song.
Baby, calm down, calm down. Yo, this your body, put in my heart for lockdown, oh lockdown.
And for the 5th straight week, Miguel, who will be playing our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival, remains number 1. His song Sure Thing is your top trending song.
This love is a sure
You could bet that, never gotta sweat that. You could bet that, never gotta sweat that.
And those are your top trending songs of the week. Hear them all on iHeartRadio.
Getting a news feed on your phone while driving
makes driving more difficult. This is dangerous.
Getting a news feed without a computer or mobile device?
It would be impossible.
Unless, of course, you get your live news feeds at the top and bottom of the hour.
It's easy.
Traffic and weather all day.
It's as simple as that.
Trending stories tend to change.
Every minute of every day.
Twice an hour, we'll feed your curiosity.
Stay informed. Shouldn't we listen? They're hungry.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Why? Why take a chance? Why risk a mistake? Why say something? We all have reasons why we choose to ignore the things that give us pause, that seem out of place. that don't feel right. The word why can either paralyze us or empower us to stand up and protect what we love. So if you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my family.
I see safe for my friends.
I see say for my students.
We see say for each other.
I see say because all of this matters.
We all have something worth protecting. A why that unifies this community we're all a part of. So protect your everyday. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And Rick Reyes chiming in over there saying, congrats on the win at EPCAD. Might have to see them again in the future. I think that's about how this works. I mean, unless there's never going to be a property valuation increase that I end up disagreeing with, which I don't see being terrifically possible. And also, let's be honest, even if some of these plans being talked about at the state level, particularly when it comes to the idea of having there not be a state level income tax, at the very least for school districts, which is the state level, basically part of it, there's still going to be all the other ones. Like we still have, of course, the city of El Paso, county of El Paso, whatever water improvement districts you might be in. That's one of the, okay, I spend more time than the average person, which I think is to say any time, over at epcad.org, because if you don't, it's a good way to find out various information, including what the taxing entities are for different properties, different areas, sometimes looking up things like that. So, like, let's take for example, see if I can find the one there, and might take me a minute, but I mean, there's plenty of other entities. School districts are absolutely the biggest chunk of it, make absolutely no mistake, and they continue to be so. But like, let's see here, do have that taxing jurisdiction. Like on my particular area, we got the city of El Paso County, El Paso Independent School District, EPCC, and University Medical Center. So not the most, but I still got, the standard 5 in my area, and all the rest of them, EPISD is definitely the biggest chunk of change, though the city of El Paso is hot on its heels, I'll say that much, with El Paso County not too far away either, and then EPCC and University Medical Center, an order of magnitude lower, I'll put it that way. So yeah, you're still going to have plenty on it, and so your property valuation is absolutely still going to matter, but yeah, I fully expect that we'll be doing that again before too long. Some other comments coming in I haven't quite gotten to, including on the brain drain in El Paso, John Browson, and saying a higher percentage of UTEP graduates leave El Paso for better paying jobs elsewhere. El Paso has too many jobs for forklift drivers at $12 an hour. I mean, I guess that has been one of the, totally excoriations, but definitely gripes that's come up in, I don't even remember previous times when, say, city council announcing any new public-private partnership or ribbon cuttings, new businesses being brought to town, etc., of which we've still got a lot of the call centers, but they've taken on some different tones and tenors. Like one of the ones near where I used to live transitioned from being just a general purpose call-in center to now being specifically a translation call center, which is interesting. But the saying that's, well, more $10 an hour call center jobs, it's not a bad thing, but is it really increasing, improving, etc.? Though also Flaco Jimenez saying that depends on the company. Our forklift drivers make double that and have great benefits. And yeah, forklift certification is a big life goal. Absolutely. So some of the other comments coming in, including also RJ on the idea of the property tax, is saying it's way past time to use the taxes to get American school children back in the top 10, at least when it comes to math, science, etc. kind of go into one of the questions about what is it being spent on and is it worth it? So those conversations, I have no doubt, will continue on, and I am sure that things like this will play into any level of exactly how they would even approach this bond. I also found a little bit more perspective from EPISD.org what the 2007 bond program was, well before I was still maybe when the voting was going on that, but close enough to be still being in school there myself, so definitely not a part of my perspective or something I was voting on there, I gotta say. But that one was a $230,000. So we've been seeing significant jumps in the amount that is being put forth. I mean, at recent times, I do recall saying that there have been upwards of $1 billion in public money on ballots in recent years. So I don't expect that to end anytime soon, frankly. If anything, I think that, the conversations absolutely end up impacting, because if you don't think that there are major, and I do mean major, companies out there that are looking at the possibilities for this, there are companies, there are consulting firms, that's the phrase I was looking for, that are definitely always measuring, okay, what does the climate seem like? Does it seem possible? Which is why, even though that Kenyatio CISD bond was not by any means one of the largest ones, in fact, it was less sizable than even that 2007 one from EPISD, the attitude towards it, the response that was seen towards it. And that was an interesting one, if y'all do recall, because there was a lot of kerfuffle involving if there were legitimate signs or not, particularly against them. It was one of the only times I've really seen, what's the right way to put it? There was no specific statement of who was behind the signs, so I kind of referred to them as wildcat signs about vote no on that bond at that point in time. Definitely didn't initially work. Actually, I don't recall what the CISD bond outcome was from the most recent one. Let me look at that one here real quick. But the possibility of it and the response to it was very, very interesting. And that's definitely something that gets looked at, that gets focused on, that gets measured in its own way. Because there's no one ever puts up a bond thinking like, well, I'm not sure if this will work or not. They put it up with an expectation that it's going to go through, and therefore they will see the success out of it. Well, for the most part, I got still in front of me here some of the recent notices for and against Prop K. Not exactly a bond in its own right, but that one was definitely formulated differently. I would say that's a pretty fair thing to say, even despite the many arguments that were going on with all of that there. So bonds come and go, and I expect that we'll keep seeing them, whether or not it'll be interesting to see if they actually are willing to put it forth in this recent, because we're definitely, 2007 to 2016, a little less than 10 years. This one's significantly less, but also economic costs going a lot more, I gotta say, probably as a factor of it. Anyway, we're going to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more calls on the line there. We've had a few pop on, but then immediately drop off. So just stay in line with us. So lines available now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. Rescue teams with the El Paso Fire Department were responding to an injured hiker this morning. The hiker was at Mundy Gap in Franklin Mountain State Park. That search effort started at about 9:30 this morning. Temperatures were expected to climb to 109 by this afternoon. The Las Cruces Fire Department helped rescue hikers on Friday in the Oregon Mountains. 10 people have been arrested and booked into the El Paso County Jail for various sex crimes. According to the Texas Department of Public Safety, the investigation sought to identify and arrest individuals suspected to be involved in human trafficking and using the internet to solicit sexual acts from minors and adults. Agencies also focused on suspects who sought to exploit and victimize prostitutes. Currently, all 10 suspects are facing felony charges. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound, a crash is partially blocking the transition ramp to Loop 375 in the lower valley. An accident Gateway West at George Dieter's got El Paso police responding to that. Eastbound Montana Avenue between Hawkins and Zaragoza, it's a 7-minute delay. And an accident reported on Montana westbound just outside the loop at Joe Battle. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Weather warned all the way through the end of this week on Friday for the dangerously hot temperatures. Excessive heat warning again, El Paso for tomorrow. High around 110 degrees for your Tuesday with breezy conditions. Partly cloudy, breezy on Wednesday. Still hot with a high around 106. 10% chance of a storm. Partly cloudy, breezy on Thursday. High around 105. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Is foot pain making your life miserable? The Good Feet Store wants to help. We invite you to visit our store at Airway Boulevard at I-10 for a free fitting and test walk and learn more about how the Good Feet Store can help you find relief. The Good Feet Store.
From iHeart Podcasts, Supreme, The Battle for Roe, tells the story of the unlikely champions behind the landmark case Roe v. Wade, starring Maya Hawke as 26-year-old lead attorney Sarah Weddington.
We're challenging the Texas abortion laws in federal court.
And Academy Award nominee William H. Macy as Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun.
Time is not the most important factor. Getting it right is.
Listen to the podcast Supreme, The Battle for Roe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
We'll have the story of our fourth president, James Madison, from Hillsdale College president Larry Arnn. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Most of the time, traffic is pretty good. But there are times when traffic can be pretty bad. No, I mean like really bad. Almost. But more like an asteroid's gonna hit the city and everyone's trying to get out of town at once and nobody's car is moving and people are running down the highway clutching their kids and whatever belongings they can grab. Yep, now you got it. It's times like these you need your severe traffic station. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
What does the sound of a school bell bring to mind? Homeroom? Lunchtime? The day's end? Or the end of school entirely, as in kids dropping out? At Communities in Schools, we work directly inside schools to help those students whose ability to come to school is often jeopardized by hardships, the loss of a loved one, poverty, lack of housing, or bullying. Hear from a few students whose lives we have touched.
They've always had my back. They've always done anything to help me.
At Communities in Schools, we empower students to succeed in and out of the classroom.
They've been there for when I've had any questions, any problems personally. Anytime I needed support, they were there.
Our mission is to ensure that at-risk kids have someone by their side.
It means a lot to me to graduate. It's just a big accomplishment.
Communities in Schools never gave up on me. They told me I can do it, and I did it.
Communities in Schools. We're in schools to help kids stay in school. See how we help all students succeed at communitiesinschools.org.
Getting a news feed on your phone while driving
makes thriving more difficult.
This is dangerous. Getting a news feed without a computer or mobile device,
It would be impossible.
unless, of course, you get your live news feeds at the top and bottom of the hour.
It's easy.
Traffic and weather all day.
It's as simple as that.
Trending stories tend to change.
Every minute of every day.
Twice an hour, we'll feed your curiosity.
Stay informed. Shouldn't we listen? They're hungry.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo. Do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And again, those dropping those likes and reacts that we do appreciate, including Jennifer Faber-Howell and Hel Rueda, James Holmes, Eric Von Holstein-Rathlow, Richard Janicek, Marky Mandingo, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, and Monica Cervantes. Two of those phone lines open as well. I think we got one that finally made it through here. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Wanted to add your 2 cents, and also note if you call in the midst of a segment like that, might get popped up live, so just save Johnny on the spot there with being on the line. Some other conversation, including on the whole brain drain idea. Ronaldo Rivera saying university graduates usually end up leaving their home. I think usually leaving is the word missing there. Their hometown/campus location, the call of the wild, and wanting a new experience. Technically did the same thing myself, but got the heck out of Dodge even before that point. But I came back because there's a lot going on here, and I'm very happy to be a part of it in its own right. A couple other stories I realized we didn't mention yet that we're probably going to have to delve into a little bit more into future days. It was over the weekend that Supreme Court still doing things, by the way, that they have specifically, according to the Texas Tribune here, rejects Texas effort to force Biden administration to change deportation policy. Only one dissent actually on that one. And also, we had mentioned this, but hadn't talked too much about it. It's the official makeup of Texas, now made up primarily by Hispanics, the largest share of Texas' population, new census numbers shows. Technically happened back in 2021, but took the estimates of that change to come out, well, until this year. So let's go ahead and get to the phone lines right now. Again, that number to call if you want to squeeze on, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have a caller on the line here. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hello, this is Eric from the East Side.
Hey there, Eric.
Yeah, I wanted to correct some misinformation that was promoted on here 2 Thursdays ago involving the various sorts of UMC bonds in the city. You and the Libre Initiative were lobbying against the creation of a comprehensive cancer treatment facility that was in the UMC bond that was successfully shut down through that petition. And that comprehensive cancer treatment facility is very much needed in El Paso to save the lives of El Pasoans. And El Pasoans with many types of cancer and needs currently have to travel out of town to get this life-saving cancer treatment because those capabilities currently don't exist in the city. And the UMC bond that was passed by the county commissioners is not a cancer, it doesn't produce a comprehensive cancer treatment facility or a cancer treatment center of any sort. Like you had said, and I quote, so when you switch gears to talk about a different cancer center, I wasn't switching gears to talk about the creation of a different cancer center because the UMC bond that was passed by the county commissioners doesn't involve the creation of a comprehensive cancer treatment facility or a cancer center of any sort. What was in that UMC bond that was passed was a surgical care and intensive care facility, not a cancer center, as you had said. So that need still exists in the city. And, when people don't get life-saving healthcare treatment or cancer treatment, they often die. And UMC treats the uninsured and uninsured children who have cancer,
Sure.
and if they don't get that treatment, they often die. So I just wanted to correct that misinformation that there's still that need in the city that first UMC bond, would have met. But, since that was shut down by the Libre Initiative and conservatives in El Paso, now El Pasoans are going to die. And that's really unfortunate. So in the future, if that comes up, people should be consciously aware that there's a need for a comprehensive cancer treatment center for both uninsured and insured El Pasoans. And it's, I don't know why you would say that what was passed, was a cancer treatment center.
If I said it was a cancer treatment center, it's obviously, surgical center, including from the new reporting from El Paso Inc. over the weekend. They've actually now completed that purchase, apparently, or at the very least, moving forward with it. In any case, the former Legent, Legent, if I'm saying that one correctly, for about $55 million with the revenue bonds here. I mean, it will have some of those capabilities, but we'll be primarily having 6 operating room suites, as noted by El Paso Inc. here, 2 gastrointestinal suites, 1 cath lab, an imaging department, and a lab. They'll also specifically have beds for telemetry care patients. I guess that's telemedicine. I've never actually seen that written out specifically, but that is the part of it. But I guess the confusion in the discussion we were having as part of this is that we were talking about the current bond, and it seemed like there was a confusion over which one we were talking about. This is not a comprehensive cancer care system. This one, as noted by who are they referencing? Christopher Chacon, who was going to be the CEO of the UMC Surgical Hospital and was previously Legends CEO in this case, has said that specifically this will be primarily not having that level 1 trauma designation as UMC does, but will basically offer more of the kinds of services, and as noted by UMC CEO Jacob Cintron, a landing place for opportunities to work within the UMC system for employees from the former hospital there. So it's an expansion of capabilities, it's an expansion of things, but also, as being noted in the comments there, it's not that now, because of this decision, people will be dying. This situation will essentially continue on here. But there's also, I mean, as much as there was lobbying of many different types going on with this, obviously the petition drive that was done by the Libre Initiative, and I will also note we did have on that the UMC spokesperson along with the El Paso County Hospital District to talk about why they were doing this and happening in this way. May or may not come up again in the future, because essentially there is a bit of encumbrance that comes along with it about having to put it onto a general ballot. But to call this issue dead because of that would be a misnomer in my mind, because it basically, I think, if you want to read between the lines and go along your analysis here, is that they don't believe, at the very least, without their willingness to bring it back up, that they don't feel that the general, at the very least, voting population of El Paso would be willing to support that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that first UMC bond getting shut down is going to cause El Pasoans to die, because now they're not going to have access to cancer treatment if they're uninsured.
But they already didn't, right?
Yeah, lives would be saved if that bond had been passed, but since Libre Initiative and yourself shut it down, El Pasoans...
Okay, let's just make one thing clear here. We do not make designations on items on the ballot. I may express opinions about, well, this makes more sense or not, but you realize we didn't say people should vote for or against an item, right?
You consistently, just like you're petitioning against that bond, that EPISD bond now, just because you're against government spending.
Okay, hold up. What did I say against this bond? There were questions about the amount that was going to be spent on it, but if you're trying to say that I've expressed an opinion on it here, I don't think you're listening to what I'm saying again. So what exactly would you say that I've said against this bond, besides the fact that it's coming?
Oh, we don't know what's going to be what it's going to be spent on yet, and X, Y, and Z.
Didn't actually say what it's going to be spent on yet, saying that this was speculation from what the caller said about how much it may be, which would be about in line with the previous one. So if you're taking that as me not being like giddy about it, as being against it, I think you need to reframe your assumptions here.
Yeah, but let's not pretend you don't blindly oppose bonds because you oppose government spending and higher taxes on people. That is what you do, and that's what you communicate, Polk.
I would dispute you on that, because we talk about a lot of different government spending in a lot of different ways. This is government spending. This was a revenue bond, the current one, that is, to make that perfectly clear. So it seems like you're taking a lot of other parts of things that you disagree with, but can't actually say what we've said. We did not say anything against that previous bond. We had people on that expressed their own opinions in both ways on this. You do get that, right?
You specifically said that people aren't going to die if this, people are going to die if that bond didn't pass. You lied. So that's you specifically said.
You just said both things here. The situation is that, okay, El Paso does have a dearth of medical services. It's one of the reasons that University Medical Center, the whole Medical Center of the Americas, and specifically Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center El Paso was established in order to deal with essentially lacks of treatment and lack of treatment options in our area. That has been an ongoing problem in this way. But you trying to say that, oh, you want people to die as if they are then going to go out and reap them themselves is a characterization I'm not exactly going to agree with. You got to understand that.
I didn't say that, but you lobbying against the creation of a comprehensive cancer treatment.
And again, I'm going to dispute with you there on the lobbying of it. We've had both sides on this issue with a lot of other opinions. If you're taking any opinion expressed in this program from the callers as well as being a part of what we're putting out, let's just flip that on its head real quick. We take your opinion on this program. Would you feel that we are vaguely at all in favor of necessarily what you're putting forth on the balance?
You yourself have told the lie that the lack of that this bond not being passed isn't going to cause people to die. And
it's not going to cause people to die, but it may that there are still going to be people that are dying without this lack of services. But to say that, well, you didn't pass this, therefore people are now going to die, and that is the direct quote from you, that people are now going to die. Were they going to already without the lack of services in our area? It's not as if there's just increasing lethality in our area. There's the way you're characterizing it here.
Failing to save lives are deaths that could be prevented. So you're just playing games with the lives of El Paso's cancer-ridden people.
Cancer-ridden people of El Paso. Okay, I get that you're passionate about this, but if you're saying that, again, you have your opinion on this, and you're entitled to them here. I'm not even necessarily saying that, you don't get to say that, but I'm saying that if you're trying to have like a cogent, coherent debate, we're getting a little bit close to where you're saying that anyone that does not support your position ends up being treasonous or whatever to their country here. So let's make this perfectly clear. UMC has very much had their own tactics and way they have gone about this and where they've decided to approach this. They have not reintroduced this bond, that bill, because of, well, not the bill, but of the petition that was put forth. They were not able to move forward with it in that same circumstance. They were not able to do it as a non-voter approved debt. And that is not meant to be a dig at it. That's just one of the technical definitions of it. There are methods that are voter approved and there are methods that are non-voter approved. The non-voter approved is now essentially shut to them in that effort, in that comprehensive way. Other things that were involved in there as well, as you may recall, was also involving treatment for burn centers, because that is also something that doesn't exist in our area. And I'm going to put this out there of the concerns. I mean, cancer, obviously, there's a bunch of phrases I want to say about cancer that I can't on air, something about frat cancer, something like that. Anyway, point is that burns, I'm going to say, is a little bit more common and purposeful and of serious nature when it comes to that. So the things that I would like to see coming out of any potential future availability of medical services in our area, I would maybe put burns a little bit higher, but cancer is important in its own right. But there are also cancer treatment options in our area. I know plenty of people who have gone through treatment and have made a lot of noise and information put out there about it. Awareness, certainly also critically important. I want to have that. But to say that if you vote against this, you want people to die, you got to say that's, that's not exactly a fair characterization of people saying, well, is this the right way to spend it? Because sure, if ends justify the means, everything's on the table, right? Like, would it be able to be said that, hey, you're not currently supporting or doing something to prevent cancer, therefore you obviously want to increase it? No, that would not be a fair characterization. But to say whether it makes sense to go about that way or not, reasonable people can and should be able to disagree on that. Do you get that point?
Yeah, you frequently lobby against reasonable policy ideas and solutions to important problems like access to life-saving healthcare for El Paso's children, and by misrepresenting policy positions as ends justifying the means and doing anything no matter what to provide these uninsured children in El Pasoans with health care.
Okay, let's take this back at least one step further before we maybe move on from this, because I've been on this for a minute. Do you think that ends justify the means, and therefore anything, if there's a good enough goal in mind, anything should be done to accomplish it? Do you truly agree with that standpoint?
The first UNC bond was the equivalent of a...
No. Do you agree with that standpoint? I'm not going to let you slide by on this one this time. Do you truly think that ends justify the means just globally and without restriction?
$15 a...
Eric, I'm going to hold you to this one. Yes or no? Do you agree that ends justify the means? I'm not trying to characterize your position. I'm asking you a direct question that you're not answering. So, do you truly feel that ends justify the means?
That isn't what's happening here, Polk. You're playing games with the lives of El Paso.
And I'm asking you a question that you're refusing to answer, which I'm going to say is not maybe depicting itself the best thing. Okay, let me answer this for you. I don't think that you believe the ends justify the means. I don't think that, because that's a ridiculous position. It's one of those extremes that puts there, including also the idea that the means justify the end, which if you're going to put them on a scale, I guess I'm a little bit closer to that one, because sure, there may be a great idea in mind, saving lives. What could be more important than saving lives? And yet, if you're going to go about this saying, well, we have to, in the extremeness, nothing is being suggested along this line, saying, well, we got to kill this one person in order to save these hundreds. The way it's often put forth, cross-benefit analysis, utilitarianism, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, however you want to put it, that a lot of people would be like, trolley problem logic. Let's go that way. It's a reason it's a real stickler in philosophy, is because it doesn't have an easy answer. So, to say that it's going to be extremely all one way or the other, I don't think anyone truly believes that. They may rhetorically say that, but I don't think down deep in their heart they truly believe that, which means that there's a reasonable analysis that can be done with everything and every part and every action that is put forth. Why are there not stoplights everywhere? Is because there has been an analysis that is done, and as ghoulish as it may sound, there has been a value to that action and the life-saving that may or may not be done with it in order to justify that action. So, if they are saying that they don't believe that, they believe that the people of El Paso will end up being able to support this, I will tend to believe them, because if it doesn't make the most sense, I mean, whether or not it's actually viable or not, whether or not it actually makes the most sense, I think that there's an urgency aspect to it here. Again, you can go back and see the full interview with the UMC and El Paso County Hospital District, and we want people to make up their own minds. But again, we post a lot of opinions on here. We have a lot of people who add their 2 cents. They're wanting to add that on here. And just to bring it home, if you're conflating with what other people say with what I say on this here, and therefore because I don't effectively shut them down and then make sure they can't comment anymore the way you seem to want me to do, that's never how we're going to do things on this program. We take a lot of commentary and a lot of different opinions, but the only one that we're going to not end up being able to do that much with is if you're saying that, well, this show and other parts of it can't exist. Anyway, I think we got time for one more quick call on the line here. We do have another call on the line call in the middle of the segment. So you're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Raul. Hey, Andrew, last week, one of your callers called me a racist for calling corrupt Republican Supreme Court Justice Uncle Clarence Thomas an Uncle Tom.
Right.
Now, I've been a long-time supporter of equal civil rights and opportunities for minority members. And I can guarantee that caller that term, Uncle Tom, came from black Democrats describing the black Republicans, which represent, for example, in 2020, only 8% of black voted for Trump. 90% voted for Biden, the Democrat, okay? Now, blacks and Latinos, in my opinion, who vote for Republicans, just like chickens voting for KFC. And on the Latino side, we call them tío tacos. They identify with a man. You know, a lot of these people are, to their credit, came from very humble beginnings and made it. And so they adopt the thinking of that class to a certain degree, but they're the minority. I mean, again, only 8% of blacks voted for Trump. Now, back in 2016, Trump predicted that 95% of blacks were going to vote for him. Now, either he's clueless or delusional or a liar or all three about black support for him. And that caller said that my calling Clarence Uncle Tom is because it was racist because the Uncle Toms were, I guess, the House blacks. And in fact, the House blacks are the ones that got the opportunity to learn, a lot of them to read and write. And they ended up, when they finally were freed, they were among the first that got to go to college and started black colleges and became, in a sense, America's black elites. And some of them there's a racist element in there too, because some of them were lighter skinned because the white masters had raped their women and ended up having mulattoes, and so there's kind of even a racist thing among blacks about who's whiter and who's black or who's not black enough, But again, the Uncle Toms are what blacks and Democrats call those few blacks who fall in line with the Republican Party for whatever really weird reason. I heard that Tim Scott say that his life, debunks the narrative of the liberals and the left about black achievement. The fact of the matter is that if you look at the economic statistics, blacks and Latinos have 1/10 the wealth of whites. Okay, so
I don't think that anyone would look at the history of involuntary servitude, particularly that of chattel slavery in this country, would think that it was a great economic opportunity for any of those who were involved with it. In fact, just to the opposite. But I think what the previous caller, while talking about there, the one you're referring to anyway, was saying that the Uncle Tom epithet particularly is considered a derogatory one based on someone's race, saying that they are increasingly subservient. And which I guess, particularly for a particularly high office in the land, that of a Supreme Court justice, strikes them as a bit of a, well, I think they said it themselves here. So I'm not going to try to pass judgment on it here. We have very simple rules when it comes to the epithets that we do not allow on this air word. I mean, it's basically the ones that are evolving with profanity and aspects of that. But I will say this, saying that someone is inherently, if you want to say that someone votes against their interest, is not aware of them, I mean, you can just say that, but I guess it's not a bannable offense at this point in time, but to say that someone is subservient because of their race, you might want to think twice about that. I'll just put it that way. Tell you what, that's going to about do it for us on this program here. We're out of time here for this one, so we'll have to leave it there for today. Again, a couple of notes for you coming up for tomorrow. We're going to be having on City Rep Cassandra Hernandez for District 3, if I'm not mistaken. I'll double check that. But in any case, talking about the spending card controversies, her perspective on this here, and of course, as much as can be said about the upcoming ethics complaint hearing. So we'll have to leave it there for today because we are super out of time before this program. I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show if you actually want to do so, and talk about the things that affect us in the borderland as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So until then, until next time, I want you all to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Just one accident to report outside the loop, westbound Montana Avenue at Justice. Slow traffic on Montana eastbound from Hawkins to Zaragoza. It's a 9-minute delay. Otherwise, no delays or crashes on your El Paso freeways right now. The off-ramp is blocked due to road work eastbound Americas Avenue at Pan American Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
You might be driving right now, and if you are, this story is right in front of you, the surprising history of road lane markings. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-989-8906 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-989-8906. That's 800-989-8906. What do you have to lose? Call 800-989-8906. Again, 800-989-8906.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Thank you again, El Paso, for making us #1 year-to-date in new car sales. As a gesture of gratitude, we're offering huge savings on all new and certified pre-owned vehicles. More for your trade with no payments for 90 days.